Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be going over how to find the controller Fortnite sensitivity that works best for you. Ever since the new sensitivity settings got added into Fortnite a few weeks ago, finding the quote-unquote perfect aiming sensitivity is even more difficult now than it's been in the past. It's difficult enough worrying about regular X, Y, and ADS sensitivity, but now if you play on the new settings, you also need to worry about things like horizontal and vertical turning boosts, ADS turning boosts, look dampening time, choosing a linear or exponential input curve. It's definitely a lot to deal with. And that's especially true if you're a controller player that constantly finds yourself switching between the new and legacy sensitivity settings. So this video isn't really going to tell you guys what I think the best sensitivity values are, because honestly, it's going to be different from player to player. But what I will be able to help you find is your own best sensitivity, no matter if you're playing on legacy, linear, exponential, or anything else. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first step that you should take in the process of finding your ideal sensitivity is to start with some kind of baseline. And what I mean by that is fairly simple. Choose a starting sensitivity that you think feels pretty comfortable. Something that a lot of players will do is pick their favorite controller Fortnite player and then copy their sensitivity values as a baseline, and honestly, that really isn't a bad idea at all. But just make sure that if you plan on playing with legacy sensitivity settings, you choose a person who also does, and the same deal if you're playing on new sensitivity. But the actual way you choose your baseline isn't super important as long as the values you choose aren't anything too crazy. Now, once you've picked a base sensitivity value to start on, your next step is to go into creative mode and place one sentry prop with unlimited health on the ground. The sentry is one of the only props that gives off aim assist on both legacy and new sensitivity, so it's perfect for what we're going to do here. The first thing we're going to do with this sentry will help us adjust our X and Y sensitivity if you're on legacy, or your horizontal and vertical look sensitivity if you're on new. The most important use of X and Y/look sensitivity in Fortnite is the fact that it's the primary sensitivity used for shotgun fights. So what you want to do once you place the sentry is spawn in either attack or pump shotgun with a ton of ammo. Then, as you should be seeing in the clip on screen right now, you want to stand a few meters away from the sentry and begin flick shotting with your shotgun. Hitting flick shots with a shotgun, even on a totally stationary target, is still one of the hardest things to do in all of Fortnite, and that's why it's a great test for your sensitivity. You want to make sure that you vary the direction of your flicks, because that ensures you're testing both your X and Y or horizontal and vertical. If you're just flick shotting left to right every single time, you aren't truly testing your entire sensitivity. Now, unless you're some kind of Fortnite superhuman, you're gonna miss at least a few of these shotgun flick shots, and if you aren't comfortable with your baseline sensitivity, you may even miss a lot of them. What's really important to pay close attention to while doing this is how you're actually missing. And what I mean by that is, if you're shooting and missing before your crosshair reaches the target, then that's an indication that your sensitivity is too low. And on the flip side, if your crosshair is traveling past the sentry and then your shot's missing, it's an indication that your sensitivity is too high. Now, as you're doing this, you only want to make small tweaks to your X and Y/look sensitivity, unless you chose baseline sensitivity values that you just can't control at all. I'd recommend a process that goes something like this. You shoot about 2 to 3 clips of flick shots, determine whether your sensitivity is either too high or too low, and then you move it up/down by about 0.05 to 0.1 at a time if you're using legacy settings, and maybe 1 to 2% at a time if you're using new sensitivity. Speaking of new sensitivity, this is also the perfect time to experiment with some of the more advanced aim settings. I know a lot of players will recommend using 0 for all the aim boosts and look dampening time, so maybe you just want to stick with that. But if not, this little drill is a great way to test some of those other settings and see if you feel like they have a positive or negative impact on your aim. Now, the question some of you are probably wondering is, well, how do I know when I should stop tweaking my sensitivity? Although there definitely isn't a set-in-stone answer, you want to get to a point where you're hitting the majority of your flick shots. Obviously, your own personal aiming skill is going to play a pretty major part in that, but once you're hitting about 60 to 70+% of your flicks, that's probably a solid indication that you've found a sensitivity you're really comfortable with. So that hopefully covers the best way to find your ideal non-ADS/look sensitivity. Now let's discuss how to find targeting/ADS sensitivity. My recommendation for this is to go into creative mode and load up the Tile Frenzy aim training course that I'll put the code for on the screen right now. What's interesting about this specific course is that it doesn't give off aim assist, which I actually think is a positive for what we're trying to do here. Obviously, you never want to use a non-aim assist giving course to practice your aim, but we aren't using the course for that. We're using it to gauge how well we can control our ADS sensitivity. What you want to do is attempt to track and hit the targets as they pop up while staying ADS the entire time. Just like flick-shotting with a shotgun, tracking these small little targets without aim assist is gonna be relatively difficult to do, so don't get discouraged if you're missing a decent amount of your shots. Plus, just remember, it's gonna be much easier in real situations because of aim assist, and also the fact that players are a lot larger than these little circles. Just like with the previous exercise, your main focus here should be attempting to notice a pattern with how your shots are missing. Even with ADSing, the same theory applies that if you're missing your targets by overshooting them, your sensitivity's too high, and if you're missing them by undershooting them, your sensitivity's too low. But another thing you also want to pay attention to is just generally how well you feel you're controlling your weapon. When you're moving your crosshair between these targets, it should feel controlled but also smooth. Even if you're hitting most of your shots, but it feels like you're kind of dragging your crosshair instead of smoothly moving it, that's also an indication that your sensitivity is probably too low. You should also follow the same principle while doing this of only making small adjustments to your targeting/ADS sensitivity. What's interesting is that with legacy settings, targeting sensitivity is only one number, and it controls both the left/right and up/down movement of your ADS sensitivity. But with new settings, you also have different values for horizontal and vertical, so you can adjust those individually. Now, once you've adjusted both your ADS and non-ADS sensitivity values to your liking, that's when you want to take these new values into an actual game. Early in my Fortnite career, as I was struggling to find a sensitivity I liked, I heard an interesting tip from someone that actually really helped me. I don't remember who it was, but the person said something along the lines of, once you think you have a good sensitivity, go into a real game, and then just take some short clips of gunfights you get into, and for Fortnite, you could even use replay mode. Then, once you've done that, watch those clips back and pay attention to your crosshair positioning in those fights. Doing that in creative mode, like I already suggested, is a really great first step, but at the end of the day, it isn't 100% the same thing as aiming at actual players in actual games. Now obviously, don't make adjustments just because you aren't hitting every single shot you take, but if you see a pattern where you're always missing too high or too far to the left, then that's when you want to tweak some things and see if you can correct those aiming issues. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down the comment section below. Let me know what sensitivity you're currently using in Fortnite, and also whether or not you plan on changing it in the near future. Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.